Hi, I thought I would do a impromptu video here, just showing my astrology book collection and telling you a little bit really quickly about most of them so that you can decide if you want to look online or at a used bookstore for an astrology book to add to your collection. The first one that I want to mention is Astrology for Yourself. And Astrology for Yourself is by Douglas Block and Demetra George. And its second part of the title is a workbook for personal transformation and how to understand and interpret your own birth chart. And what it essentially does as a workbook is work you through your own chart to learn about how to read a chart. And you could use someone else's, I suppose, but it's really fun to start with yourself. Honestly, most of us are studying astrology so that we can understand ourselves and maybe those of us closest to us. So it takes you through your sun, your moon, and your ascendant, and then all of the rest of the planets and actually the asteroids as well. I didn't realize that. That's cool. And then it also talks about the main aspects in your chart, which are the relationships between the planets. The next book is Astropsychology by Karen Hamacher-Zondag, and she is Dutch, I believe, and an author of quite a number of books. This one's subtitle is Astrological Symbolism and the Human Psyche, the Traditional Wisdom of Astrology Examined in the Light of Jungian Psychology. So there is a whole sector of astrology books that are Jungian, and essentially what they mean by that is they're symbolic. They talk about myths, they talk about characters that the planets represent or the signs represent, and so it's in relation to Carl Jung, who is the dream symbolist and psychoanalyst from Switzerland. Okay. I have a book by Judith Hill called Eclipses in You, How to Align with Life's Hidden Tides. And it has a lot about lunar eclipses and solar eclipses through the different signs. And I saw her speak. I've seen Demetra George as well. Okay, another book, Moon Tides, Soul Passages, Your Astrological Cycles for Personal and Spiritual Development by Maria K. Sims. It talks a lot about moon phases and what you were born under, what your personality is like as determined by the moon phase at the moment of your birth. Okay. Sky Mates is a book by Stephen Forrest, and I believe his wife helped, Jodie Forrest. He has several books that are in a series. Sky Mates is the astrology of love, sex, and intimacy, and it teaches you about what's called synastry, which is how you can compare two people's charts, particularly in romance, but you can also do it with family members. And so what you do is you're taking one person's sky and the other person's planets and putting them in if they had fallen within where your houses are lined up with the signs. And then you look at the interaction of your planets. For example, are they close enough together to be a conjunction? Are they opposing each other? Are they harmoniously or in a challenged way mathematically separated from each other? So another book that Stephen Forrest has is The Changing Sky. I have these in paperback mass versions, but they're probably, you know, the tiny ones. They probably also have other editions that are larger. So The Changing Sky is about how to understand transits, a really great, simple introduction to after you were born, as the planets continue to move, where do they fall in your planet, and do they, or in your chart, and do they interact, and what's going on? How does it feel for you? Like, what house is Pluto in right now, and what is that experience like? The Rising Sign by Jean Avery. It's subtitled Your Astrological Mask. And it says, a guide to that part of yourself that you allow others to see. Learn to determine your own rising sign and what it reveals about your personality and how it describes the way you act. Essentially, she talks about each rising sign probably determines what sign is going to be on all of your remaining houses, because it's sort of like turning the dial and starting it at where you were born. If it starts at Aries, then the 12th house is probably Pisces. The only thing it doesn't account for is if you're not using equal houses, you could have some larger houses and some smaller houses, and they would line up with the signs a little bit differently. But is generally a great understanding of your persona that you present to the world and the lens that you see the world through. Okay, another classic that's so awesome is called Being a Lunar Type in a Solar World, and it's by Donna Cunningham, who's another awesome author. And she's basically talking about how important it is to know your moon sign, particularly as women. And she's sort of saying that if we live in a masculine world that's very solar, and the sun, our sun sign is really more of our ego, then knowing our lunar experience, not only our moon sign, but tracking the lunations, is very important for us to feel well-rounded and to understand our feminine aspects, our emotional aspects. She's also the author of Moon Signs, The Key to Your Inner Life, and it's, I think it goes through the moon, through not only the signs but the houses where they are placed for you natally. It's also a good idea to get an ephemeris. This one started in the year 2000 and goes to 2050. And I'm not sure where my other one is, but you can get one that goes basically, I think, for a century. The other option is you can put in to Google and say ephemeris for 2017. And what you get is a chart that may not make a lot of sense at first, but you can read about how to read an ephemeris. It basically tells you where the planets are each day. Another Stephen Forrest book is called The Night Speaks, and it is a meditation on the astrological worldview. I also have his book called The Book of the Moon, Discovering Astrology's Lost Dimension. Another Donna Cunningham is an astrological guide to self-awareness. Not only about the moon, but about all the planets through the houses. Another series of books that's so valuable is by Robert Hand. So it starts with planets in youth, and then there's planets in transit, and essentially it takes every single planet and it's goes through all the signs and all the houses. And then in transit, it takes every single planet going through your houses as it moves during your life, and how it interacts if it's in contact with your natal planets. And then there is planets in composite. So the second way that you can interact or compare two charts is to make a third chart of the midpoints. And I just don't use that method, but he does have a whole book about that. I wish he had a book about synastry. Maybe I'll check and see if I have every book of his or not. This book is super cool. It's called The Book of Houses, and it is by Robert Cole. And it's probably out of print, but you should look and see if you can find it. It takes you through your solar journey that happens every year. Every year at the same time, because it's the only thing that's related to the calendar, is at least the main calendar we use, is the sun going through your houses. And that means that each month you have a focus of the sun illuminating that area of your life, and he gives you suggestions about what to do in each phase. Okay, well, that's all I'm going to show you for today.